where horror lies.
Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. It is week 457. It is theme week. It is the end of July. It is nightmare horror. Maybe, perhaps, my favorite subgenre of horror, and that is things that rely heavy on imagery and not so much the mechanics of plot, the structure of it. Maybe it's why The City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell, is my favorite horror film of all time. Gates of Hell, I think, is my favorite trilogy of all time. But Nightmare on Elm Street, man, and that's my pick. That's my pick. It's only been done one other time. And what can you say about it, man? We all know this film in and out. And so I thought I would just talk about maybe my experiences with it and how it might have shaped me early on as a 14-year-old. I remember well, man. I mean, I must have been just getting psyched up reading about it in the pages of Fangoria back in the day, and knowing that it was coming, and it was fall time, and seeing the when the TV spots first were unleashed. I remember we were visiting my grandma and grandpa up near Niagara Falls, and I can't remember exactly why we were up there, but I remember I actually had some TV time in the living room, and I don't know what I was watching, but TV spot came on for A Nightmare on Elm Street. And man, I'm telling you, I went out of my mind. And I don't know if it was like the next day or whatever, talked to my mom and to drop me off at the movie theater to see it. And wouldn't you know it, man, I had it all set up. I go in, girls working behind the counter. I start begging and pleading my case because it is rated R, right? And I'm just 14. My mom doesn't want to come in and watch it with me. But she's out there beyond the doors in the car. And so I just start begging and pleading this girl. I'm like, my mom's right out there, and I'm waving. My mom's waving back. I'm like, she's fine. Please, you gotta let me in. I gotta see this. And so after, just a minute or two, the girl's like, well, I guess your mom says it's okay. But you gotta know, it's the middle of the afternoon, and you may end up being the only one in that theater, and it gets dark, and I'm not bailing you out. And I'm like, I don't care. I've gotta see this. And so I got in, got my popcorn, got my pop. I think my popcorn and soda, whatever, lasted for, I don't know, for the opening scenes of the movie, and I lost both on the floor somewhere. And I was clenching down on every side of my seat, man, for the rest of the movie, constantly looking behind me, looking up into the dark corners of the theater. And you gotta remember, back in those days, man, you didn't have those, I'm pretty sure you didn't have those running lights or all that jazz, man. It was pitch black in the theater, man. It's not quite like that anymore. And so as a 14-year-old kid, man, I was almost paralyzed with fear watching this movie. And what an experience it was. It is number 6 on my top 100 of all time horror films, and for good reason, man. It was one of the early movies that helped shape me in terms of my love for certain aspects of horror cinema. Really quickly became a big fan of Wes Craven. God, we miss that guy, don't we? And just learning about in the pages of Fango how they were able to do some of those special effects sequences, in terms of utilizing an entire room that goes up and around, and just all sort of the new things we were learning way back in the day, and getting to see it on that big screen. And I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite trailers of all time, man. I love just popping the trailer once in a while and just watching it. But I did revisit this the other night, and I've heard it said before, man, because a lot of us that are really big fans have seen this movie a million times, and I've heard it from some that it's sort of not really wears itself out, but it there's not much of an edge left to it. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I popped this thing in the other night. Actually, I popped in my widescreen VHS, compliments of New Line Cinema. But if you did not know, it was Video Treasures that first put this thing out in all of its VHS glory. Probably the best copy I have is my Infinite Film, I guess that's how you say it, whatever. And this has the house that Freddy built. This has the Never Sleep Again documentary trailer. It's pretty loaded, and it did get me to thinking. you know, in a couple years, its 40th anniversary is going to be coming up, and it'd be nice if we had a standalone, you know, 4K release of this thing. But can you imagine if Scream Factory is the one who does it, or somebody, whoever does it, all the extras that exist that are out there? This thing is going to be fully loaded. I can't even imagine the, I would love to see a commentary on it by the cinematographer. I would, you know, just bring back some of the special effects people and just really take us in and just, man, just have fun with it, man. Even, I don't know, it's just, it's kind of got me excited, man. Lonnie sort of mentioned that in the group chat the other day for BodyBags, and you know, that this could be coming, and boy, you can only hope. So, I mean, you know, I threw it in the other night, and I mean, the movie hasn't really lost any real edge with me. I mean, I'm still engaged, man, and I still watch, man. I mean, you know, from the, you know, front end to the end, and I mean, it's still a joy to me. Now, maybe it helps that I don't throw this in on every day, but it is still a joy for me to pop this in and just sort of take it in. You know, some of those sequences, man, Johnny Depp, man, getting sucked into the bed and raw, you know, I mean, that stuff was insane for 1984. And just Heather Langenkamp's, you know, as Nancy, you know, just the opening sequence. I was reminded by in Tina's dream or nightmare sequence, and early on, when she's woken up out of her sleep, and that little tooth is, you know, ends up being wedged into the her window. She ends up out in the alleyway behind. And yeah, you can see things are set up. You can sort of, I mean, some things have kind of caught up to where you kind of see things, and it is a little rough around the edges, but some of the visuals, man, when Tina's in that alleyway and Freddy first comes around the corner for the first time, you know, it almost has, dare I say, almost a Fulci, it's almost Fulci in its, I don't know, in its aesthetic appearance. You know, you almost expect a gut throwing up sequence or something. I mean, something really absolutely horrific. And you do get a pretty horrific scene, though. I mean, when you get up to the door and Tina's trying to fight him off, and she, you know, half his face comes off, man, but everything's sort of quick. It's not like Fulci would have just made you stare for half an hour at this thing as it sort of unfolded before you. But it does have some great moments. And even Tina's murder scene, when she's like just up in the air twisting around, and of course, what worse way to get knocked off into the side of the wall than by a flying body? I mean, it still brings that punch, man, to it. If you just, you know, don't say to yourself, okay, this is like my 631st time watching it. No, it's like you just gotta like pick a moment in the middle of the night, turn everything off. Maybe even if you have a VHS copy of it, so it's a little rough around the edges, pop that thing in your VCR, man, and just, oh man, and just enjoy. And fortunately, I did get to see this again on a big screen at a drive-in. And Sam's first time on the big screen actually was at a drive-in, and that was a pretty cool experience to see it like that. Would I see this on a big screen again? Absolutely. In 2 seconds, I would. I would love to see it again. Twice just ain't enough. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to even talk about the synopsis of the film. We all know the film. It's really pretty near and dear to most of our hearts, I think. The legacy of this franchise, what it meant for New Line Cinema. And that's the other thing I do love, man. I'm a sucker for the studio logos at the beginning. And just to see that, whether it's Avco or Embassy Avco for The Fog, or, you know, there's certain movies where that studio logo comes up that just immediately becomes your hook in, right? I mean, throw in Friday the 13th and automatically that old Paramount. I mean, it's just, it's the beginning of getting, okay, we're gonna watch something really good. And that early New Line Cinema logo, man, the way it was in the old days, I mean, you know, stuff like that when you're only 14 years old, that finds, you know, it just sort of grabs onto you, and it seemingly never ever lets go. And so, I mean, I don't know. If you really want to hear the synopsis, I mean, we all know the story. I mean, you know, you've got this group of kids seemingly long after this child molester kid murder, Freddy Krueger gets caught, seemingly let off on a technicality, and somehow in a Lovecraftian way manages to punch a hole back into this world via the nightmares of the children of the parents that, you know, took out sort of a mob, you know, vigilante vengeance on him. And it's a terrifying concept to think of what can happen when people take the law into their own hands and what may come back on you after the fact. And so obviously none of us want to be friends with somebody like Freddy Krueger, and it's a little weird to think that knowing what he really is, it's weird to see kids dressed up as him at Halloween time. You know, in a sense, it's kind of weird, knowing what character, and it probably doesn't help that throughout the franchise history, he really lost that edge that he had in the first film. And I think Wes did a pretty good job with New Nightmare with sort of bringing that back a little bit. And I'm telling you, Freddy or Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 has really grown on me in the last few years. You know, I think it still retains that edge. In fact, I think Freddy is a little bit, maybe even more brutal in some respects in that movie than obviously he will be in Nightmare 3. Although, who doesn't love Nightmare on Elm Street 3? I mean, that movie is just, I mean, absolutely awesome. Awesome as a follow-up sequel to mainly the first one, I think, right? And so, anyways, I mean, you know, I don't know what else to say. It's a favorite of mine, the subgenre nightmare horror. I mean, 4K release of this in a couple years will be absolutely out of this world. I sort of don't care who does it. I just want to see, I mean, it doesn't have to be Scream Factory. I don't know. I'm not even sure if New Line is in the game of 4Ks. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But somebody needs to put this thing out. And unlike most 4Ks, it would really be nice. Shoot, I would even take a restoration off a 4K scan, but with a ton of extras. I would take that in 2 seconds. So I'm not sure how we're going to get this, but with its 40th anniversary coming down pretty soon, I have to imagine we're going to get something pretty special eventually, hopefully sooner than later. So here in week 457, Nightmare Horror, I think you guys are going to have just a blast of a week at some of the reviews, the movies or films that have been selected that will be dropping before me and after me. And ought to be a fun week. There's one in particular, Horsehead, I'm almost sure is going to get reviewed on. I'm really curious, might even be Jason, really curious to see how that, hear the thoughts on that. I still haven't seen it, so I'm really curious about that. So anyways, here in the week of, that is Nightmare Horror, here at BodyBags, we thank you for all your support, all that you do each and every day, what you bring each and every day in terms of just the support and the comments and the likes and all that stuff, man. Thank you, man. Wouldn't be worth it without all that, right? So here in week 457, man, just enjoy it, and we'll see you next week. Go Bills.